get it. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Zach SchuZ Shoemaker. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys for tuning in to today's show. So, on today's show, we're going to be finishing up the interview with Ryan Garner. He is the number 7 ranked WBC and number 10 WBO, number 13 IBF junior lightweight contender, the European super featherweight champion. He's 17-0 with 8 KOs. That's Ryan Garner. Ryan, I appreciate you taking time to come back on again, man.
I appreciate you having me, mate. Obviously, from last time. I'm glad hopefully it's going to be better today.
Absolutely, man. So we're going to pick up right where we left off last time. And for those of you that are tuning in now, you guys can go check out the interview, the first part. I'll combine them both when I go out there and get the official interview released. But we were talking about your career, the early stages of your career. And we were talking about the point that you were almost considering giving up on boxing. You were at a point where you were in your early teens, 20 years old, considering moving on from boxing. Walk us through that point of your life.
I think it was just, like a typical. You get to that age where everyone's down, all your mates are down the park, they're drinking, stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And you're kind of like missing out on that. Obviously, because professional boxing, you'll be 100% dedicated, so it's hard. But obviously, it's the only thing I know I'm good at and can make financially good money from. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it was, I didn't really stick out. Do you know what I mean?
How close were you to giving up on boxing? Like, how close did that point come for yourself?
Pretty close to honest. Pretty close. Like, even sometimes now, mate, boxing's hard old sport. Do you know what I mean? It's 100% dedication.
Right.
Even sometimes now, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Do you know what I mean? But like I just said, there's nothing that I can do with my life more and financially stable my life, and obviously give my kids a better life than boxing. Do you know what I mean? It's something I'm good at. I could go work on a building site 9 till 5 and earn peanuts compared to what I can earn potentially from boxing. So it was a no-brainer, mate, just to stick it out. And like I say, it's a short career, so just stick it out for a few years and then see how it goes. And luckily, I did really because, like I said, I'm European champ, ranked number 7 in the WBC. Got a British Commonwealth title shot next with the European. And I'm headlining shows now, so it's all paid off in dividends. You know what I mean? And hopefully, I can keep going and hopefully bring a world title back to Southampton.
Ryan, I have to ask you this. If I were to happen to know that 18, 19, 20-year-old Ryan, and, you're coming off the accident, you obviously the different things with the weigh-in issue, all the different things happen. I would have known you at that point in time and said, hey, Ryan, in 2025, you're going to be fighting Reece Bellotti for a massive fight. You're going to have the European super featherweight title belt. You're going to be a top 10 ranked person in the WBC. What would your reaction have been?
I wouldn't have believed you. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have believed you. I'd said you're lying. But listen, I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. And there's a reason for me to carry on boxing is to go and achieve big things and become the best fighter to ever come out of Southampton. And hopefully do my kids proud, do my family proud, and do Southampton proud. I think, like I said, I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. And I believe I was meant to carry on boxing because there's big things to come.
You talked about the fact that obviously you end up getting to that point. You decide to pursue boxing. It's still difficult. There's still ups and downs in boxing. It's a very difficult sport. But if we were to go look at your career and you were to kind of evaluate a certain point, can you pinpoint a moment that you started to realize, you know what, this can be something that I'm actually going to be successful at? I could possibly be a top 10 ranked contender. I could possibly be the European super featherweight champion. Like, do you kind of remember when that started to click for yourself?
I kind of knew early on anyway in my pro career anyway. Because I was when I was 18, 19, 20, I was sparring some of the world champions. I was sparring Josh Warren, Carl Frampton. I was doing stuff with the Welsh brothers at the time. I was sparring and Mark Condon, people like world class fighters. I was sparring them, so I kind of knew I had something about me. Do you know what I mean? You don't kind of fluke all them times sparring that kind of caliber of people and doing it right. Do you know what I mean? So I was knew I had something about me then, but I probably started knuckle down when I first got with my missus now, my fiance. When I got with her, like I said, it was a cross path, but when she kept me grounded, kept me focused. And since then, really, it's been a turning point, and I've just obviously started slowly up in the level of competition, the people I'm fighting, and it just kept winning. Do you know what I mean? It just kept winning. So once you keep winning, and you realize how good you are. Do you know what I mean? So keep you going.
When you look back at that portion of your life, the early stages of your pro career, and you go through all the turmoil, all the different stuff going on at that point, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you learned, whether that be as a boxer or as a person and a man outside of that ring?
I don't know, really. It's hard, yeah. Like, mate, I don't really look at anything. Like, I'm pretty plain sailing, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
I just go with stuff. Do you know what I mean? I
Hmm.
don't really think about it too much. I just get on with it. And it's done good so far.
Well, I want to get into your relationship with Frank and Queensberry Promotions. Obviously, they've been with you for a very long time. You've had a great relationship. How did that first come to be? How did you get to know Frank, and how did you get to be part of Queensberry?
Um, Obviously at the time, my trainer now went Benn, who we've been together with since the start of my pro career. I trained with him when I was younger. Obviously, there's now like all the, he's pretty much it. Well, there's a few more now, but
Hmm.
when I was younger, he was the only pro coach really in Southampton. So
Okay.
I've been in since I was young. I was doing this with him when I was young, and then yeah, like I say, I was falling out. I was amateur, and then at 17, I was thinking, well, I'm going to carry on boxing. I needed something different from the amateurs, you know what I mean? So when I started training with Wayne again, like I said, I trained with him when I was younger. So I went
Hmm.
in to see him when I was 17, started doing some training again. Just needed that something fresh enough to something to give me that hunger again, do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So that's I went to train with him to turn pro. And at that time he had Joe Pigford, who
Mm.
he was at the time when I went there, he must have been like what 12, 13 and over 30 knockout, knocked them all out.
Right.
Or bar one fight, and he was on the so he was just knocking on the door, and then with big promoters, so he was only doing small hall, and obviously
Hmm.
Wayne was training him, and then he took Joe to Frank Warren, and then off the back of that, really, obviously then obviously they got Joe signed with Frank, and I turned over. Obviously, had a good amateur career,
Hmm.
uh, and yeah, obviously Wayne and Joe went there first. Joe signed with Frank, and then I went there obviously with Frank Hopkins and Wayne back trainer. And then I signed with him as soon as I turned. Well, I went to see him when I was 17, ready to pro fight at 18. So, yeah.
When you make that transition from the amateur ranks to the pro ranks, was that easy for yourself? Like, do you feel like your style of fighting translated well? Was it difficult, or how would you say that transition was for you?
Much better professional. But like I say,
Figured, yeah.
3 rounds is very short, isn't it?
Hmm.
Like you see, that's why you see nowadays. You see some of these world class amateurs because they can win easy over 3 rounds.
Right.
But these coming in when they start doing more rounds, 8, 10, 12. A lot of these Olympic medalists don't do very well at all. Like, do you know what I mean? Because
Right.
they can't withhold. It's your fitness, your stamina, your strength, all that kind of stuff. All comes into one. It's not
Right.
just in amateur boxing. Some of those tippy tappy move. Who can get on your bike and touch score quick? Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Whereas pro is more nitty gritty, and that's how I like it. How I style. Do you know what I mean?
Right. You have the nickname the Piranha. I want to know the backstory behind that. How did that come to be? How did you get that nickname?
Well, I was just talking about Wayne. Obviously, Joe Pigford, who
Hmm.
when I turned pro with Wayne, he was fighting. We was there. I think it was after my I didn't have one for the first 2 fights or 3 fights. Didn't have no nickname. Obviously, he was Joe the Pigford, and obviously everyone's got a nickname in there. And we was trying to think for ages what rhymes with like we started off. He was all like Ryan the Lion. Yeah, cheesy in it. Iron Ryan, just rubbish like nickname, cheesy ones.
Sure.
Um, and I just yeah, just I don't know. I was just thinking about what could it be, and then the piranha like it just I don't know, can't specifically pinpoint how it come about me like thinking of it, but it
Right.
come about and it's thick and everyone loves it. Like I don't think there's ever been a piranha, is it, for a professional
Yeah.
boxer? Not that I know of anyway. And it happens to rhyme with my last name, so it's good. And like I say, the old catchphrase, feeding time every time I'm fighting. So it's all good. It all worked out well for me.
I love that, man. So when I look at your career, Ryan, there is a certain fight that I feel like was the moment kind of that people started recognizing, okay, you are the real deal. You are a top contender. That was the Archie Sharp fight. I feel like when you went out there last year and you made that massive statement, that was kind of like this nail in the coffin. It's like, okay, Ryan's the guy that's ready to fight. Obviously, he's not going to fight the world scene yet, but he's ready to go make that next jump. If he wants to go fight on the top levels, he's ready. Would you agree with that? Like, do you feel like that was the moment that you kind of realized, you know what, I can fight with the best of them?
Yeah, that was my that was the tip of the iceberg. You know, what I mean, like
Yeah.
that set me away because look, Archie, he was ranked number one in the WBO.
Mm-hmm.
He was undefeated, 25-0, I think, at the time.
Yep.
He was supposed to be this like good feature. I mean, he talk the talk. Listen, I've got respect for him, but yeah, that was a turning point. Like I say, he had all these world rankings, all this stuff. It was just me. I just watched. I'm myself. I'm not flamboyant. I'm not nothing. Do you know what I mean? I just like to fight. I can fight.
Right.
So yeah, that was just. And like I said, the way I won, I thought it was going to be really, really difficult fight, really hard fight. Obviously, he had a name, undefeated, world ranking. I thought, and for me, he was like calling out the Shakur Stevensons, all
Yep.
these other world level fighters. And then for me to go in there, I'd say I won pretty convincingly. You know what I mean? And that's when
Hmm.
people started to talk about it more, realise more. And even though Frank's had my back from the get go, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's had my back, but that was like since then, and he's proper and think, yeah, Ryan's ready for the next level now. You know what I mean? But he's
Right.
guided me perfect. He's getting me the perfect fights at the perfect time. Do you know what I mean? I had a fight with Liam Dillon, then an uptick in Aisha, and then last one was supposed to be an hard fight, fought for the European title,
Yep.
won that, keep winning, and then now again I'm up in it again. Another harder fight with Rhys Bellotti. So I just think Frank's guided me perfect. He's got everything. Well, Wayne, Frank Hopkins, my whole team's they're just guiding me perfect, man. It's all working out well, and I believe it's not finished yet.
When we talk about that turning point, the tip of the iceberg you talked about, and you now have a lot more attention on yourself, everybody starts to know your name. You're now relevant in the boxing world around the world. Have you realized any sense of a pressure that now comes upon you, or how have you handled the new attention?
Yeah, I know there's pressure in that. I know there's pressure, but it's weird. My last two fights, I've kind of gone in. I kind of took a turn, mate. Like I say, with the Archer fight, I should have been really nervous. You know what I mean, it's the toughest fight of my
Right.
career. But I went in there like I don't give a fuck mentality. You know what I mean? Like what
Right.
I was like I said, whatever's meant to be is meant to be. If I'm
Mm.
meant to win, I'm meant to win. If I'm meant to lose, I'm meant to lose. I've done my best in training. If I'm not good enough to beat him, then I'm not good enough. It is what it is. Like, do you know what I mean? And then I've done it my last two fights. Just took a massive weight off my shoulders,
Okay.
and I ain't worried about nothing anymore because I just said, look, whatever's meant to be, is meant to be. So I just go out there to give it a will, and if I'm meant to win, I'm meant to win. And obviously, I've been meant to win, so I'm still winning. You know
I
what I
like
mean?
that answer because I feel like that could be a mindset that honestly for all athletes probably need that because you're going to have ups and downs. You know, you might lose some point in your career, you might win. There's going to be ups and downs. It's part of life.
Yeah.
And has that always been your mindset, or has that been something you've developed now as you've
Nah,
gotten
that you
older?
say, it's just been my last two fights, mate. Like
Okay.
the last two fights, just, and it's good for me. Like it takes the pressure off your shoulders,
Yeah.
and it's just go in there and just be me, and it seems to have worked. So, like
Hmm.
so the other ones, all my other fights, previous fights, I was more worried about. Oh, I didn't want to lose and make myself look an idiot. If you know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas now, like I said, I'm just gone into it is what it is mentality, and there's no nerves, there's no nothing. And it's working. It's making me feel comfy at ease and more
Mm.
relaxed. And yeah, like you say, because sometimes that added nerves and pressure you put on yourself, it can drain you.
Yep.
So luckily it hasn't, and I've been flying in my last few fights.
Let's head into your most recent fight, March 1st. Salvador Jimenez, European Super Featherweight titles when you win that award there. Can you take us through that fight? Because you dominated him 120 to 1 away on all three scorecards there. But winning that European Super Featherweight title, what did that mean to you?
Massive, massive top. Do you know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's it. Obviously, over here it normally goes British, European, world.
Yep.
So obviously, now I've got the chance for the British, but even though I skipped it, the
Hmm.
Europeans are massive. It's like I said, the only thing that's like as a world title, so it was a massive achievement, and I believe that's the biggest title anyone from my city's ever won. If I'm
Hmm.
honest, I think so anyway. If I'm right in saying, but that's why it's just a massive achievement, mate. And now I've
Right.
got the whole city behind me, the football club, just everyone. So it kind of just turned life around, and I'm
Mhm.
headlining all the time now, which is good.
All right, so I want to ask you now as we get back to the present time. And I know we already talked about your fight upcoming with Reese Bellotti in the first portion of the interview, but when you go through the negotiating process here, obviously you had the European title. You could have went and made that world jump, and obviously still a
Yeah,
massive fight, but you could have fought, one of the top guys from another country, whatever it might have been. What brought you back and said, you know what, I want to go fight Reese Bellotti? Why is that the guy you chose?
the belts.
Mm,
He's got British and Commonwealth.
right.
Like I kind of went past it with the Europeans. Normally goes British, Commonwealth, European world.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought at the time when I fought for it, I thought, it's a shame, bit gutting that I never got the chance to fight for it.
Okay.
But but yeah, I managed to go back. Luckily, it's come back around, and then you have a chance to do it, and then hopefully win this one. Then I'll go on the world titles.
Well, I've got to ask you now. You are still about a month and a half out. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of training and a lot of preparation. But when you step in that ring, when you fight Reese Bellotti on July 26th, is this going to be the best version of Ryan Gardner that we've seen?
Yes, and I believe it's got to be. Do you know what I mean? I think it's going to be the toughest test of my career. Look, he's very fit, strong, game fighter, but I think I've got the same attributes as well. And I think I'm just a bit cuter, just a bit more intelligent. I think technically better. So I think, like I said, I've got to be at my best to win this fight, and I believe I will. With each fight, normally I believe where I'm staying busy and active now. With each fight, I'm getting better and better,
Yep.
and I believe my 26th of July, I'm going to be a better version of myself again.
What is your prediction for how the fight goes down on July 26th against Reese Bellotti?
Well, I'm going to win all day long, 100%. I'm not going to call how or what, because I don't want to put that pressure on myself. Generally try and force it, but I just know, like I said, I'm a big believer in destiny. I'm destined to win this fight, go on big thing, and sell out St. Mary's one day.
All right, so then I have to ask about your future. You beat Reese Bellotti. Obviously, you're going to move up higher in the rankings. I'm not sure exactly what those rankings will be, but I'm sure you'll be top 5 in the WBC. Could possibly be inside the top 10 in multiple other groups there as well. And you're going to have the chance to go actually make that world jump. Go fight for possible world title in the near future. What is your goals? Like, if I were to ask you, let's say the next 12 to 18 months, heading into 2027, what are all the goals? What do you see yourself accomplishing in that next year and a half?
Well, I believe the plan is really win this one, have a fight end of the year, potentially fight number one again, and then in the summer, hopefully at St. Mary's Sanctuary Football Club at the stadium. So that's my aim in the next year. That's
Okay.
my aim, maybe 2-3 times. But this fight end of the year, maybe start of the year, depending on what goes on, or maybe just go in June at St. Mary's, sell out, and make history, mate. And hopefully that'll be for world title. Because like I said, all the belts and domestically in the world. So hopefully get a world title fight at St. Mary's in the summer this year.
You are 27 years old, Ryan. You are very, very young. And when you talk about your division, obviously there's a lot of great fights out there. Is there somebody you'd want to fight? I know we have guys like Oshaki Foster obviously having his fight upcoming now pretty soon, but you have so many guys at 130 that could make sense for big fights. Is there somebody that you would have your eyes set on that you would like to go out there and fight?
Nah, mate, I've never called out anyone. Do you know what I mean? I've never called out anyone. That ain't my style. I'll just fight whoever's put in front of me. Like, I got no animosity against no one. It's a joke to me. Do you know what I mean? If you're in front of me, I want to take you out. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not really one for name calling. So, but I'll fight anyone, mate.
I love
Anyone.
it.
Whatever titles are there, and financially makes sense. Want to make as much money as I can. For kids, that's the main thing.
I love that answer, Ryan. Well, Ryan, I've got a couple questions before I let you go. One of which is talking about your legacy, something I was like wrapping up talking about, and that's when you look at your career. One day, eventually you'll put down the gloves, you move on from boxing. What is that you want to be remembered for what you've accomplished both inside and outside of that ring?
The best fighter to ever come out of Southampton. That's my aim. And I think I'm not far away from it now. I think if I win this on July 26th, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be cement myself as the best fighter to come out of Southampton. That's my dream. That's my aim. And then whatever comes from it after that, is anything better. You know? I'll be known as the best fighter to ever come out of the sea. And I believe, like I said, if I win this one on July 26th, I believe that's Spencer, British, come up from European. And whatever comes from after is Benn.
I love it, Ryan. Well, Ryan, I have one final question for you. Instead of following up on that one you just talked about, if you do become and solidify yourself as the best fighter from Southampton, what would that mean to you?
Mate, I'll be the happiest man in Southampton. Nah, alive. Listen, mate, I'd love to. I'll get it now anyway, yeah? Like when I'm walking around Southampton and I'm out and about and go to these football games, I get recognised, you know what I mean? And
Right.
I love that feeling. Like, it's good. It's good feeling, like, seeing all these kids come up to you asking for photos. Just average people like myself. Do you know what I mean? They just come up to you. Everyone wants to speak to you, chat to you. I like it, mate. Do you know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
a people's person, and I love that. So I'm hoping, like, if I become the best fighter, and then that's solidify it on 26th July. And hopefully, I'll do my city proud, and I'll be remembered for it. And hopefully, yeah, I'll just be well known around the city, man. That's all I want to be.
I love that, Ryan. Well, Ryan, I appreciate you taking time to come on today, man. It's been a blessing and honor having you on here. And I can't wait to see what God's got in store for you on July 26th.
No, thank you, man. Appreciate you having me again.
Absolutely, man. You're always welcome on. God bless.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Yep. See you later, Ryan. I appreciate every single one of you guys for tuning in today's show. I'll be going back on live real quickly. I'm just going to go on a quick commercial break, and then we'll get back to the remainder of the show following that. I appreciate you guys all for tuning in, and I'll see you guys shortly. God bless you guys. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Zach SchuZ Shoemaker. Welcome back to the SchuZ Show. For those of you that tuned into the Ryan Garner interview, there will be two parts of that. The first part happened a week ago, then we finished it up today. So those two will be combined and then placed into a singular YouTube video to go watch very, very shortly after the show concludes. So if you guys want to tune in for that interview, make sure you go check it out. But before I go any further, if you guys are all tuning in and there's any comments or questions that you guys have that you would like me to address on today's show, make sure to leave them in the comment section and I will get to them very, very soon. With that being said, let's get into some boxing news now. Junta Nakatani will vacate the belts by the end of the month and is already planning a fight in the autumn. That is the plan currently now that Junta Nakatani has. Remember, this weekend, he unified the two belts. He is now going to vacate those belts, move up to super bantamweight, and he will be fighting at 122. That will set us up for potentially the biggest and best fight to make in boxing. That will be one of the most incredible fights between Junta Nakatani and Naoya Inoue. That is now on the table. It seems very realistic, but the timeline for that fight is to most likely not occur until spring of 2026. The plan currently is this for Inoue. He will be fighting MJ in September. He will then be moving on into December, the end of the year, and he will be fighting the likes of most likely Nick Ball at 126. That's the plan in store right now. After that, he's going to consider the Junta Nakatani fight. Here's the two things that could possibly happen. Nakatani could move up to 126 and fight him there, or the Inoue will go back down to 122 and fight Junto. That is still up on the to be discussed. We'll see what happens. But here's what is interesting for Junta Nakatani. He's going to have the opportunity now to get at least two fights in, if he so pleases, before the Inoue fight. And I think that's going to be huge for him. Junta Nakatani is more than ready to go fight at 122. I think he proved himself this weekend that when you look at that, and Shido was the second best guy at 118. He beat him up real quickly and got him up and on out of there. If he could do that to guy at 118, I think he's going to be just A-okay at 122. But the biggest advantage I've always given to Inoue is two things. One of which is I think Inoue is a slightly better, more skilled fighter than Junta Nakatani is, although that's very, very debatable now. But I do believe that Inoue having the age and having the experience at 122 would always give him the upper hand. If we're talking about Junta Nakatani potentially getting in two fights at 122, that could change the story quite a bit. Because it's no longer this guy's making a weight jump and moving up to fight a guy. This is now two guys at 122 just naturally fighting each other, and that could be for a very, very interesting fight. If you were Junta Nakatani, what would you do? One of the guys I think would be ideal for him to go fight would be Luis Nery. It's a guy that in a way has already fought, and Luis Nery has just now recently agreed to a 5-fight deal to be fighting in Japan. That could open up the doors for him to be fighting Junta Nakatani in December is my guess. If Junta Nakatani wants to return as he already has planned for the fall months, autumn months, then he could go fight somebody else. I'm not exactly sure who would be on the table at that point in time, but still, Luis Nery is the guy I would be targeting for Junta Nakatani. I think if he gets that fight underneath his belt, it could make for a much more intriguing fight against Naoya Inoue. But here's the thing, let's just talk about this. If this fight does end up going down between Naoya Inoue and Junta Nakatani, most likely around May of 2026, we have to realize the magnitude of this fight. Very rarely do you have two guys that are domestic fighters from the same country that are both top 10 pound-for-pound fighters able to go out there and fight each other. That's the situation that's currently being built up right now in Japan. You look at big fights, whether that be a Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, two massive domestic fights. Obviously, they have the heavyweight title. I think that still is the biggest fight to make. But even a lot of these other stories, very rarely, even as good as Bivol and Beterbiev is, you don't have the build-up process that you have for this type of fight, where two guys are domestically from Japan fighting each other on a massive stage between the top two fighters in that weight class and two of the top 10 fighters in all the world. This will make for a massive, massive fight. And it's something that we have to look forward to because it could be one of the best fights that we have seen in this entire decade. It could go down one of the best ever. So those type of situations where you're talking about two top 10 guys, you don't know what could happen, but it could be for an incredible fight. So that's what's now in store between Junta Nakatani. As I said, he's vacating his two belts and officially moving up to 122 now in the future. SchuZ Eubank Jr. versus Benn rematch is being targeted for September 27th. That's always been the day that people have been rumoring. It now seems to be getting closer and closer to coming into fruition. I know SchuZ Eubank Sr. is very much so against that fight, unless the weight cuts is taken out of that fight to make SchuZ Eubank Jr. not have to wait during the way he did. The biggest thing, though, is that if that is to be the case, that fight is no longer very interesting. As much as it sucks for SchuZ Eubank Jr., if he's coming in without being weight drained, that fight gets over a lot quicker than it did the first time around. That fight, from a money standpoint, as I've always said, was going to get made in the rematch. The first fight was a fight of the year contender. I think it is the fight of the year at this point. But if we're going to go out there and have this rematch go down, it was going to be for financial gains. The money is too good to pass up for both Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. That if they were to go out, the only possible opposition would have been Chris Eubank Jr. has a fight lined up with Canelo. That's the only fight that could have rivaled it. For Conor Benn, it's already out the window. But if Ryan Garcia had a massive statement against Rolly Romero, you could have made a debate that would have been a big selling fight as well. That's not off the table. So for Conor Benn, there's no bigger financial fight to make. Obviously, I guess you could hypothetically say Terrence Bud Crawford at 154, but Bud's not fighting at 154 anymore, and that was never going to happen. So the most realistic thing was to make this rematch happen from a financial standpoint. I think it's going to be great, but the crazy thing to see is that we're going to have countless massive stadium fights back to back to back. Remember, July 19th, Usyk Dubois. Then you're going to be having in August, you'll be having, or I guess September, you'll be having now Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn, as well as September 13th, you'll be having Canelo Alvarez, Bud Crawford, potentially at a stadium fight at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. So lots of big fights to be made in that time span. Next thing I want to get into is, in fact, the Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Bud Crawford fight. We finally have details coming out about this now. Here's the details. I'm going to read out all the information that's now been put out this morning. Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Bud Crawford for the ring, the WBA, WBC, IBF, WBO super middleweight belts. This will be taking place in Las Vegas, United States of America on September 13th. And Dana White will be promoting the event. For those of you that are UFC people, it's going to be on the exact same day as UFC Noche, but UFC Noche has now been removed from being a pay-per-view event and just become another fight night event, therefore making this a much more feasible weekend for Dana White to be doing this card. There will be 3 big press conferences hosted in preparation for this fight. The first one will be in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on Friday, June 20th. Second one will be on Sunday, June 22nd in Fanatics Fest, New York. And then the third one will be at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas on June 27th. This will be a massively promoted fight. And here's the thing I'm going to say about this. I'm not going to give my official prediction on how this fight goes down yet. But what I will say is that this fight, whether you like it or not, whether it's the best fight or not for both Terrence Bud Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, it is good for boxing. And here's why. First of all, this fight will be broadcasted on Netflix. Terrence Bud Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez will be broadcast on Netflix as announced it today. And I think that factor right there is huge for boxing. The reason I say that is the current pay-per-view model for boxing, while it is good for those, it works at whatever, it is not the best for growing the sport of boxing. A lot of people learn of new things when they just are scrolling through TV channels, when they're just watching certain things that they already have, and they see it come up, and then they become boxing fans or they become fans of that content. When you talk about the pay-per-view model, the best of the best fights, typical fans are not able to go out there and watch those. And it has hindered the growth of boxing tremendously. So when you talk about this being on Netflix, one of the most subscribed groups and products in the entire world, streaming services in the entire world, you now have the opportunity for countless more people to tune into this fight and become boxing fans. Having these fights go down on Netflix is massive for the sport of boxing. This is going to do good numbers. It's going to be different than pay-per-view numbers, but it's going to do massive numbers for the sport of boxing because so many eyes are going to be on 2 of the best fighters of this generation in Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Bud Crawford. Whether or not this fight goes down and it's good or not, there's going to be massive eyes put on this fight. It's going to be one of the most trended things on X, on social media that night. And when you combine all the different factors, this will make for a very successful night for boxing. And you also have to factor in this component. The odds are quite high between this being a Netflix fight and it being something that Turki Al-Sheikh is putting together with Dana White promoting it, that it's going to be a stacked undercard. And if you have a stacked undercard, that's going to put a lot more eyes on much better fights. We look back at the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight. That fight was atrocious. I was very clear about that. Nobody wanted to say that. That was true boxing fans. But that undercard, you have Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, one of the best watched, most anticipated fights for women's boxing, got so many more eyes on it because of that. You look at the undercard as well. You had Barrios defending his belt against Abel Ramos. You had Bruce Carrington on that undercard. You had a lot of people that would not have watched these fights had it not been on Netflix that now got the eyes placed on them. When you have that type of situation unfolding, that is good for the sport of boxing. And that's why I think that what happened here, the deal that got solidified, put it on Netflix, is great for the sport of boxing. This is something I was going to do on yesterday's show, but I decided to move it to today's show, kind of give it a little bit of a break since there was so much to break down from the fights that happened this past weekend. But I'm now going to give you guys my updated pound-for-pound tiers. For those of you that are tuning in right now, my traditional method that I utilize for this is I do not like to go in order from 1 to 10, whatever it might be. I go by tiers. I think tiers are a lot easier to put it in because I feel like there's a lot easier to group these guys. And here's my updated tiers. Only one guy moved up. His name is Nakatani. At number 1, Usyk, but Inoue remain. At number 2, Bivol Beterbiev. Number 3 is where the change happens. Prior to Sunday morning, I had Bam Rodriguez individually by himself at tier number 3. Junto Nakatani has now moved himself up into the 3rd tier, in my opinion. Number 4, Canelo Alvarez, Shakur Stevenson, Taraji, and Benavidez. Number 5, Teo, Boots, Haney, Tank, Loma is now obviously going to be retired, so he'll be removed very shortly, but I'm going to leave him there for the moment here. And then number 6, you have Janabek, Obertaya, and Ortiz. And number 7, Zurdo, Yabuki, Navarrete, Espinoza. That is my updated pound-for-pound tiers. The next update for this will probably be coming, I'd say July 19th, when you have Usyk will be fighting that day. Bam Rodriguez is fighting that day. Let's see who else is fighting from that day. That's about it from that. That'll be around that time. So July will most likely be the next time I'll be updating my pound-for-pound tiers. But that's my updated tiers as of this point in time. A couple of things before I let you guys go on today's show. Oscar Duarte will be facing Kenneth Sims Jr. on August 2nd in Chicago. That's going to be a good fight, a 50-50 fight between two contenders. I don't believe it's going to be officially a title eliminator, but it could potentially serve as that purpose. It's going to get them very, really close to a title shot for both those guys. Also, an interesting situation here unfolds. Sam Noakes versus Jono Caro is set for Dublin in a showdown. This is going to be interesting, and why do I say that? The whole duration of yesterday's show, I talked about this component with Abdullah Mason and Sam Noakes being the best fight to make for the vacant belt that obviously Keyshawn Davis vacated or got taken away from him. Sam Noakes apparently already has a fight lined up against Jono Caro. A good fight, but it's not a world championship fight. And if they already had agreed to that deal and did not get announced this morning, he officially is going to be eliminated from title contention at that point in time. He obviously will get a title shot following this win against Jono, but he will not be fighting Abdullah Mason right away for the belt, which would be unfortunate for him, bad timing. But now that means that who's Abdullah Mason going to fight? I said on yesterday's show that Abdullah Mason, Sam Noakes is the best fight to make. I think with ease, Abdullah Mason will be anybody else underneath him between 2 to 5 or between 3 and 5 that could possibly get a shot. So it's going to be interesting to see who he ends up fighting. The last thing for today's show, Teofimo Lopez hinted that he is going to be fighting on August 16th now on his IG story. He posted the date 8/16. That's obviously August 16th. Remember, as of last week, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez was set to go down. He ducked Devin Haney. Now it appears he might be back on August 16th. That would make no sense because he said he's not going to be ready by that date, but we'll see what happens now. Could he be added on to that Riyadh season card that I talked about yesterday that's headlined by Dillian White and Mosi Toma? Who knows? That would be an interesting kind of storyline there. Or is he going to be placed on the undercard of Tank Davis, Lamont Roach? That is possible as well. So we'll see what ends up unfolding there. But yes, Teofimo Lopez could possibly be set to fight on August 16th. What is interesting, though, is who could he possibly fight on that date? I've got 2 names. One of which, Keyshawn Davis. 2 very controversial guys that have been in the news recently for things that are not very good. Fighting on that card could make a lot of sense. Second guy, all hinges on Saturday. George Kambosos will be fighting Richardson Hitchens for the World Championship. If Kambosos walks in there and pulls off the massive upset, and he becomes world champion, that is the guy that I've always said, I'm not sure why Teofimo Lopez does not want to go out there and rematch him yet. That could be the fight to make if Kambosos pulls off the upset. It would be a unification at 140 between 2 guys in a rematch. That would be a huge fight to make. Now, that hinges upon, obviously, Kambosos pulling off the upset on Hitchens on this weekend on Saturday night. But if that were to be true, I do believe that could be a fight that Teo looks at. Because Teo Kambosos rematch would be a big selling fight due to the fact of what happened in the first fight. And then it also would be a unification at 140. That could be the ideal situation that Teo is keeping his eyes on for Saturday. With that being said, I see no comments in the comment section. I will be tuning in back in tomorrow. Tomorrow night will be a little bit later show. I believe starting at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I've got 2 guests on tomorrow's show, so make sure to go tune into tomorrow's show. I will see you guys tomorrow. I also will be announcing exactly when that show goes down tomorrow morning, so make sure to tune in for that. But I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great rest of your guys' Tuesday. I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your guys' day as well. May God bless you guys all, and SchuZ is out. See you guys tomorrow.